She had it all: friends, a future, plans. But one summer evening, someone decided she didn't even deserve a chance to explain. This is the story of a girl who was just looking for love and ran right into a monster. The lake was quiet, but it remembers the shots: 9 bullets. 9 seconds of silence. When the sun came up over Mississippi, the news spread from the woods to the campus. The body of a young student was found by the water. Her name was Ally Costile. She was 21 years old. She was studying to be a marketing specialist, teaching fitness classes, dreaming of starting her own business. Her whole life was ahead of her. But someone decided her dreams were expendable, and when the deputy sheriff climbed the hill by the lake, he already knew. This wasn't an accident. This was a crime scene. A phone still glowing in the grass. A watch that marked the time of her last breath. And a note addressed to Mom and Dad found somewhere it shouldn't have been. But the worst part, the story he would uncover, because this wasn't just a killing, it was a sick game between 2 people, where one wanted to love and the other didn't want to take responsibility. Stick with me. What he did will make you straight up furious. But before we dive in, do me a favor, support the channel, hit subscribe, like this video, and if you want, share it. It really helps the channel grow and lets me do more investigations. While you're watching, drop in the comments, what city are you watching from, and what's the weather like where you are. Alright, now let's get into the story, and believe me, this one will chill you to the bone. Alexandra Costile, or just Ally. To her friends, she was laughter and light. To her family, a daughter, their pride, their love. And to anyone who met her, even for 5 minutes, unforgettable. She grew up in Street Louis, Missouri. That kind of kid who lights up a room the second she walks in, cheerleading, running, honor awards, she did it all. Her coach, Tom Ghost, once said, she was the kind of student coaches dream about. She never looked for the easy way. She loved a challenge. She wasn't afraid to work for it. That spirit led her to the University of Mississippi Ole Miss. It was her dream school. She loved the flowers on campus, told her mum that's why she wanted to go there. And when she arrived, she dove right into college life. Golf club, running club, yoga, Pilates, Alpha Phi, sorority, business fraternity, you name it. She wasn't just studying, she was inspiring people around her. Her apartment? Oh my god. It was like a pink paradise, seashells, palm trees, the whole vibe. Ally loved the ocean, and even more the sunsets. So much that she made a separate Instagram account just for them.
Ally, what are you doing?
Taking a picture for Sunsets by Ally. Follow it.
Bubbly, open, talkative, she could strike up a conversation with literally anyone. Her friend Maddie Norris once said, "If Ally's there, I'm there too. She was my other half." When Ally didn't have a prom date, Maddie went with her. 2 best friends, laughing all night long. At Ole Miss, she found 2 more sisters, Morgan Hall and Elizabeth Brock. The 3 became inseparable. But even they didn't know about the other side of her life. About the guy. Ally dreamed of her future meeting a southern gentleman, getting married, having kids. And for a while, it looked like that dream had come true. Brandon Theesfeld, a Texan, tall, athletic, charming. To her, he was the one. To him, she wasn't. Her friends barely ever saw him. Morgan met him once. Elizabeth never did. That's how far apart those 2 worlds were. One bright, full of friends and sunsets, the other hidden and painful. They'd seen his messages cold, dismissive, heard the way he talked to her harsh, without respect. They told her to walk away, but she couldn't. Maybe it was because of that dream she still held on to. Or maybe it was that big heart of hers, the one that couldn't let go of someone who never planned to hold on to her. When her parents came to visit that last summer, she looked happy. She begged them to stay just one more day. She wanted her mum's cooking, wanted to go shopping for new decorations for her room. And when Cindy and Keith drove home, they felt sure their daughter was in a good place. She was about to start her final year of college, a diploma, a career, a life she'd worked so hard for right ahead of her. But a few days later, Ally was gone. Ally was so much more than what happened to her. She was sunsets. She was pink sorority dresses, running tracks, golf swings, and yoga mats. She was late-night melodramas and laughter with her best friends. A girl who wanted to fill her room with seashells, not because it was trendy, but because it made her happy. She should have graduated in 2020. She should have walked that stage with her diploma in hand. She should have had her whole life ahead of her. If Ally's life was light, Brandon's was shadow. On the surface, he looked like your typical Southern college guy. Athletic, into hunting, fishing, football. He grew up in an affluent family in Fort Worth, Texas. His father, Dr. Daniel Theesfeld, was a well-known anesthesiologist. On paper, Brandon had it all: money, comfort, opportunity, prestige. But beneath that perfect image, something much darker was hiding. His roommate, Rex Revita, didn't sugarcoat it. He was your typical daddy's boy, Rex said, always bragging about his dad's money, saying his old man could bail him out of anything. He'd say the most vulgar, disgusting things, especially about girls. Sexist, arrogant, entitled. That was Brandon's reputation, the guy who thought he was untouchable, the guy who didn't respect women, the guy who used his dad's money like a shield. But to Ally, he seemed different, at least in the beginning. They met at a bar during her freshman year. Brandon, this confident, charismatic Texan, she invited him to a sorority dance. After that, things kind of developed. But there was no balance at all. It was an on and off thing that turned into random hookups more than anything real. Her messages would go unanswered for days. Brandon was never her boyfriend. To him, it was all casual. To her, it could have been something real. Her friends didn't get it. They couldn't understand what she saw in him. He was like a ghost in her social circle. No one ever saw him. But somehow, he haunted every part of her thoughts. She cried over him, showed her friends his cold, cruel messages, told them he could be insanely aggressive. They begged her to walk away. But she didn't. Or maybe she just couldn't. Online, Brandon looked even worse. He bragged constantly, posed with guns, tried to live that fake macho life, and in their texts, you could see the emotional abuse, plain as day. One friend later wrote, "He harassed her for years, used her for years. I held Ally so many times when she cried because of that monster." Another said simply, "He was horribly sexist. He'd sit at a table with 6 girls and laugh at them, like some kind of pig." Those raw, honest words, that's who Brandon really was. But in Ally's world, he was still her obsession. Even when he blocked her number, she found ways to message him. When he ignored her, she'd try again. Her friends couldn't understand. Why him? Why that guy, the one who treated her like she didn't matter? Maybe the answer lies in the difference between her dream and his reality. Ally wanted love, family, peace. Brandon wanted parties, booze, drugs, and zero responsibility. By junior year, they started talking again, but nothing had changed. She wanted more. He wanted less. And then came the messages. The ones that changed everything. April 2019. The tension between them hit a breaking point. All the good moments were gone. Ally kept messaging Brandon long, emotional, desperate texts. She talked about drinking too much, maybe to get his attention, maybe to make him see her, maybe to ask for help. She begged him to meet her, but Brandon kept his distance. He ignored her, or agreed to meet, then never showed up. Whatever balance they had was completely gone. Her world revolved around him. His didn't include her at all, and yet he didn't let go. Behind the scenes, Brandon was losing control too. If Ally was the sunshine, he was the storm cloud creeping closer every day. At first, he was just a shadow on the edge of her life. Then he became this constant presence blocking out her light. And finally, he consumed everything. When police found Ally's body, her phone was missing, but her Apple Watch was still there. And that watch held secrets. It had synced messages, saved conversations, ones that might have disappeared forever. Through that watch, and later, cell tower data investigators were able to piece together the horrifying truth. The messages started in April 2019. Ally was worried. She'd missed her period, so she bought a pregnancy test. The result was unclear. This faint blue line that could mean everything or nothing. She took a picture of it and sent it to Brandon. "There's a faint blue line, but I'm not sure. I guess I'll wait a bit. Maybe my period will start." His reply came fast. "Well, okay. We'll see. But if you're pregnant, we're not keeping it. You can just take a pill. Not a single, 'I'm here for you.' We'll figure it out. Don't worry. Just cold calculation, no baby. Just a pill." He even added that it would ruin his life. For Ally, it wasn't that simple. Her replies were long, emotional, sometimes even defiant. I'm not saying what I'll do because I don't even know what's happening. But even if you don't want to be part of this, I'm sweet, I'm beautiful, and I know one day I'll meet a real man. It's like she wasn't just talking to him, she was talking to herself, trying to remind herself that she deserved better. But Brandon didn't change. He ignored her for hours, sometimes days. And when he did reply, it was short and cold. Ally kept begging to meet up, saying, "It's better to talk in person." Brandon would either refuse or feed her empty promises. "I'm busy today, maybe tomorrow, but the decision about the pill that's mine." To him, it wasn't a conversation. To her, it was life or death. Her desperation kept growing. She wrote that she'd been drinking heavily. "In the last 48 hours, I drank a bottle of tequila, 2 bottles of champagne, 7 beers, and some wine." Later, psychologists would say maybe she exaggerated, maybe she was trying to shock him, to get his attention, to scream for help without saying the words. Like a cry, "Look at me, I'm hurting, come help me." But even if the numbers were off, the message was real. Ally was losing control, and Brandon was too. They were both spiraling just in opposite directions. By July, things boiled over again. On July 12th, Ally sent him another photo, 2 new pregnancy tests. Still unclear. That same day, Brandon drove to Texas, and when he came back, he wasn't empty-handed. He had a gun, a Glock 40 caliber pistol, his father's. He even posted a picture of it on Snapchat, the gun sitting in his car. Caption, "Finally bringing my baby back to Oxford." The irony? He spoke about that piece of metal with more affection than Ally had ever heard from him. Around that same time, his search history went dark. How to get away with it, how to cover up a crime, Ted Bundy, how to tie someone up, how to lure a victim, searches about bullets, casings, ammo, even questions about Glock safety switches. And there was an old Facebook post from 2013, a photo of little Brandon at a shooting range. "My son, Brandon Theesfeld, tactical weapons expert. I'm no gun expert, but honestly, that gave me chills, and, weirdly, a bitter laugh at the same time. Brandon was slowly slipping into darkness, and by then, he almost couldn't see a way out. Meanwhile, Ally just wanted to see him. She sent him pictures of herself, hinting that her body was changing. "I'm not as skinny anymore. I could say I just gained weight, but it's starting to show." Brandon's replies? Short, cold, even predatory. "Let me know when you're back from the party. Is your house empty right now?" To Ally, after all the silence, maybe that sounded like progress. Maybe she thought he finally wanted to talk. About her, about them, about the baby. But later, prosecutors said those texts revealed something else. Brandon was checking if anyone would be around, if there'd be witnesses, if someone might hear what he was planning to do. That digital trail saved everything. Every plea, every rejection, every promise to meet that he never kept. It became a diary of a toxic relationship, one-sided, uneven, and dangerous. And as investigators read through those messages, the picture got clearer and clearer. Friday, July 19th, 2019. Oxford, Mississippi. Middle of summer. Downtown is alive, neon lights glowing, laughter spilling out of bars, music bouncing off the sidewalks. For Ally, it's just another Friday night. She's still hoping that maybe this time Brandon will actually show up. She'd been waiting, texting, asking to meet. And that day, at 3:50 p.m, he finally replied, "You home today? I can stop by." One short message, and maybe, for her, a little spark of hope again. At 11:52 p.m, surveillance cameras caught Ally outside Funky's, a popular bar in Oxford. She walks out the door, waves quickly to a friend, and heads down the street. Light shirt, shorts, blonde hair glowing under the streetlights. To anyone watching, she's just another college girl walking home after a fun night out. But that was the last time anyone saw her alive. A few minutes later, Ally got into an Uber, a silver minivan. It took her home to the Retreat apartment complex, just outside the city. Her roommates later said she came back around midnight. Everything seemed normal. But after that, she went out again, quietly. No witnesses, no goodbyes. Around 1:28 a.m, a pickup truck pulled up outside her building. Ally got in. Judging by the messages, she was probably happy, finally, a meeting. Maybe to talk things out. Maybe to make peace. Maybe to plan their future. Brandon drove her out of town, away from the lights, away from people, to Sardis Lake. The drive took about 40 minutes. Ally trusted him. Ally believed in him. The pavement ended, turning into gravel, then dirt. They pulled into a spot known as Buford's Ridge, an old fishing camp, surrounded by nothing but trees, water, and crickets, silence, and darkness.
Alexandria Castile's body was found near a lake about 30 miles from campus, and investigators suspect foul play.
Here at home, family and friends, of course, they are grieving. Our Morgan Young spoke with some of her friends today.
When I found out, I just could not stop crying. I knew her really well.
Lexi Natsis says she met her in 2nd grade. They were in the same Girl Scout troop.
Me and my moms both started bawling our eyes out because my mom knew her very well. She was one of our Girl Scout moms.
A childhood friend who says what stuck with her was the way Castile made people feel.
She would make you feel better about who you were.
Margaret Illig and Sammy Martin say they were best friends in high school. Sammy told me she was an amazing friend and had the kindest heart. Margaret describes her as a ray of sunshine, saying she was always positive and uplifting. Then there's Anna Pasco, who says she and Ally became good friends after meeting their freshman year at Ole Miss.
She always had a smile on her face, even through darkest times.
A legacy of kindness, selflessness, and joy, sprinkled through her 21 years of life, nestled in the memories of friends she made along the way.
I know she could have bettered this world. She had a little bit more time.
Saying the time she had was spent loving others. Morgan Young, 5 on your side.
Saturday, July 20th, 2019. The news of Ally Costile's death swept through Oxford like wildfire. A bright student, a future cut short, the headlines read. Police confirmed it 8 gunshots. She never stood a chance. Investigators quickly narrowed it down. Ally's Apple Watch, the same one that had tracked her steps, had also saved her messages. The ones her missing phone couldn't. Every word, every plea, every message about the pregnancy, and his cold, emotionless replies all there. Her friends confirmed it too. Ally had been begging Brandon to meet her. She thought she might be pregnant. He'd been ignoring her for months. None of them really knew him. Yet somehow, he'd become the center of her entire world. Sunday, July 21st. Detectives reached out to Brandon. They asked him to come in for questioning. He stalled, made excuses, finally agreed to show up Monday. But Monday came, and he didn't. Strange, one of the detectives would later say. He treated the police the same way he treated Ally. Police got a warrant for his arrest, and permission to track his phone. The signal showed he wasn't in Oxford anymore. Not even in Lafayette County. Brandon was on the move. Highway I-55 heading toward Memphis, Tennessee. An alert went out. Be on the lookout for a grey pickup truck with the license plate. Take it. Hard to miss, right? By noon, US Marshals had found him at a gas station in South Memphis. Cameras caught it. The pickup at the pump. Officers approached. Brandon stayed calm, cold. Didn't resist, but there was no getting away from the evidence inside his truck. A Glock pistol, the same one believed to have been used to kill Ally. Clothes with blood on them. In just 3 days, Brandon Theesfeld had gone from a cocky college senior to a murder suspect. And that license plate, take it. It almost felt like a statement. Police were searching Brandon's apartment, and what they found was chilling, a 2-page handwritten letter addressed to his parents. I'll read it as best as I could make it out. The handwriting was awful, but here's part of it. Dear Mom and Dad, I am not a good person. This is not your fault. Something in me just doesn't work right. I've always had awful thoughts. They've been fueled by white powder and alcohol. I love you all so much. This isn't on you. It's hard to put into words how much I love you. I don't deserve any of you. I just feel broken. I was never good at school, and I think this is the end for me. I'm either going to prison, or I'm gonna die. Don't take this the wrong way, but I know they'll catch me. I'm sorry for being such a shitty son, and I know you'll love me anyway. Then came a list of names. Brooklyn, I love you. You're the smartest person I know. Thank you for putting up with everything I've done. I'm sorry, just be better than me. I love you. Thank you for always being there. Eddie, you helped me more than you know. And it ended with, I've always had these demons. Please don't blame.
There must have been more than 100 people at the vigil. Ally's friends say they appreciate that turnout because there was nothing she loved more than having her friends together. It was emotional. There were lots of hugs and lots of tears.
I may have been Ally's teacher, but clearly listening to everybody's thoughts tonight, she taught a lot of us as well. And I know our candles are burning, but Ally clearly is a light that's going to shine on in each and every one of you.
She didn't deserve what happened to her. Nobody does, but she didn't especially. And I just want everyone to remember that. I want everyone to focus on how good of a person she was and how much joy she brought into the world and how positive she was, not the situation.
Within just 3 days, Brandon's double life came crashing into the open. To some, he'd always seemed like that polite southern guy, charming, polite, the one with the smile. To others, he was a manipulative, arrogant, self-absorbed jerk, the guy who bragged about his dad's money and treated women like they didn't matter. Now, everyone agreed on one thing. He was the one responsible for Ally's death. Then the case took a new turn. Forensic results came back, and they showed that Ally was not pregnant. Not at the time of her death, not even recently. So why did she believe she might have been? Some friends thought maybe she actually had been pregnant earlier that summer and lost it. Her messages hinted at that. Even her mum said she'd suspected the same, that Ally might have been pregnant at one point. Others believed it had never been real, that the faint test lines and her symptoms were just something she held onto, a fragile reason to stay connected to a guy who was already slipping away. The medical report was clear, but online chaos exploded. And let's be real, this isn't about blaming the victim, it's about people trying to understand. Reddit went wild with debates. Some users said, if she really did pretend to be pregnant, that's manipulation, sure, but it doesn't excuse anything he did. Others thought she had convinced herself that she saw that faint blue line, and it gave her hope, that kind of desperate, stubborn hope that refuses to die. A lot of people saw this whole thing as a closed circle, her desperation, his rejection slowly spiraling toward the worst possible ending. Twitter blew up with anger. Friends called Brandon out for years of emotional cruelty. They described him not as someone who panicked, but as a manipulator who enjoyed the control. A forensic psychologist who studied their messages said there was a clear pattern: her long, vulnerable texts and his short, emotionless replies. Just enough communication to keep her hooked, but never enough to show care. Prosecutors called it more than just avoidance. They said it was elimination of a problem. According to them, that was his motive for murder. The tragedy, the district attorney later said, is that neither of them was thinking clearly. She was clinging to a future that no longer existed, and he was terrified of a responsibility he could have easily handled. Ally kept believing in a shared future. Brandon kept saying that fatherhood would ruin his life, and in the end, he did the one thing that ruined it completely. Honesty in that relationship had long turned into paranoia, manipulation, and silent punishment. The warning signs were there, flashing like sirens. But no one could have imagined it would end like this. For 2 years, the case of Ally Costile's murder wound its way through Mississippi's courts. The headlines never stopped. University student charged with murder. Pregnancy rumors at the center of tragedy. Brandon Theesfeld could face the death penalty. The courthouse in Oxford turned into a stage. On one side, the Costile family, heartbroken but always present. On the other, the Theesfelds, wealthy, protective, and still convinced of his innocence.
Our hearts go out to all of those touched by Ally's positive spirit and passion for life, who are now feeling sorrow.
The family of Ally Costile spoke for the first time, her cousin reading a short statement in court.
We pray for strength in the coming days and are thankful for the friends, neighbors, co-workers, and many others who have supported us.
Costile's family traveled from St. Louis to Mississippi for the hearing. Brandon Theesfeld is charged with murder. His attorney says he was going to request bond, but after he discovered new information, he decided to ask for a mental health evaluation.
At the first court hearing, Brandon stood up and said, "Not guilty." He was charged with capital murder because prosecutors argued there was another crime involved besides the killing itself: kidnapping. They explained that Ally got into his truck because he promised they'd talk, but instead he lured her out. And under the law, that made it kidnapping, which meant grounds for the death penalty. The defense prepared to fight back. His attorney Tony Farisa, told reporters they have to prove she was kidnapped, but she got into his truck voluntarily. Trying to say we tricked her, that's a stretch. He tried to paint Brandon not as a predator, but as a lost kid who couldn't handle alcohol, drugs, and panic. He added, he's the son of a respected Texas doctor, raised in a Christian home, never been in trouble with the law. He's young, with his whole future ahead of him. But the texts, the Google searches, the Snapchats, they all told a different story. By the summer of 2021, negotiations began. Prosecutors had strong evidence. Ballistics confirmed the Glock was the murder weapon. Surveillance cameras showed his pickup near Ally's apartment. Cell phone data placed him at the scene. And that letter he'd written, it basically predicted both prison and death. The defense had only one real card left, the risk of a jury trial. It could drag on for months, emotional, public, and if even one juror hesitated, the death penalty could slip away. So, a deal was made. August 27th, 2021, Brandon Theesfeld walked into court, wearing an orange jumpsuit. He looked smaller, nothing like the arrogant college boy everyone remembered. Behind him sat his parents. Across the room, Ally's family, dressed in pink, her favorite color. The charge was reduced to first-degree murder. In exchange, he pled guilty. For the first time, he showed emotion. Reading from a prepared statement, his voice shook. There's no excuse for my actions. I've asked God for forgiveness, and I hope one day you can find it in your hearts to forgive me too. He admitted he killed Ally. Admitted he destroyed her family. But he never said why. Then came her family's turn to speak. Her father, Keith, wrote, he shot her multiple times. She was bleeding out, and he just walked away. Very few people in this world will ever understand the pain we've felt, and that pain will never go away. Her mother, Cindy, didn't hold back. Her words felt like a sentence of their own. Brandon, you are evil, heartless, deceitful, cruel, corrupted. You belong in prison for every single day of your life, for what you did to our daughter. And every time that cell door slams shut, let it remind you of the life you stole. Her words hung in the courtroom like a sentence, long before the judge ever spoke. This case became more than a murder trial. It became a mirror, reflecting much larger issues: gender, power, pregnancy, violence, and how people treat one another in relationships. It exposed how fragile love and life can be, and how quickly everything can go wrong, even when it starts with what looks like a misunderstanding. After the tragedy, Ally's friends tried to make sense of it all. They remembered her laughter, her warmth, her kindness, but also the darkness she hid behind that smile. One friend wrote publicly, he harassed her for years, used her for years, but you will never dim her light. Number justice for Ally. And her cousin's post went viral. If you've ever wondered why women fear saying no to men, this is why. Because we never know if you'll take it calmly, or shoot us 8 times and throw our bodies into a lake. The pregnancy question kept splitting opinions. Ally sent photos of faint test lines. Brandon instantly said he didn't want a kid, and she kept begging to meet. After the autopsy, the internet lit up with debates. Some believed she truly thought she was pregnant, others that she'd just convinced herself she was. But none of that changed the one truth. What Brandon did can never be justified. Sociologists later said something powerful. The most dangerous moments in relationships are the transitions. When someone tries to leave, to set a boundary, or when something appears that could change their life forever. For Ally, that moment was the possibility of motherhood. For Brandon, it became a problem one he decided to erase. 2 internal storms colliding inside 2 young people. Then came the online noise. Some tried to rewrite the story, calling Ally obsessive, clingy, or manipulative, reducing a real person to a debate. But Ally was only 21. She was scared, but she still believed in love. She simply wasn't ready for the level of cruelty Brandon was capable of. He was 22, still emotionally immature. And when you mix entitlement, privilege, and explosive anger, you get a deadly combination. Their relationship may have been doomed from the start, but no one imagined it would end like this. Ally's friends clung to each other in grief. They wore pink, held memorial nights, posted photos of sunsets, and built a tribute in her honor. In Street Lewis, her coach drove 14 hours to speak at her funeral. He talked about her determination, her kindness, and that smile, the one that never faded. Brandon, meanwhile, entered a world with no luxury, no status, no protection, just concrete, steel, and numbers instead of names. He doesn't control anyone anymore. Now he's the one being controlled by doors, locks, and rules. His new world is grey, silent, and endless, filled with years to think about what he did. Later, investigators pieced together the events of that night. At a picnic table, they found empty White Claw cans and scattered shell casings. At some point, Brandon pulled out the Glock, the same one he'd brought from Texas, the same one he'd shown off on Snapchat. He fired a shot into the water, maybe to scare her, maybe to test the gun, since, as we now know, he'd literally Googled how to use it. Ally, nervous but trying to keep it light, laughed and said, "You're crazy." Then he aimed it at her. The first shot came across the table while she was still sitting. Then came the others, one after another. 9 shots total. It wasn't panic. It was rage. It was an execution. He left her there by the table, her bag beside her, and drove away. The lake fell silent again. Around 2 a.m., a local resident heard the gunfire, but didn't realize what had happened. The next morning, at 10:23, a sheriff's deputy driving by noticed something on the ground. It was Ally. She was already gone. Meanwhile, back in town, her friends were just waking up. Some were still sleeping off the night before. Others were making breakfast. When her roommates saw she wasn't home, they figured she'd just stayed somewhere else. But when her phone didn't answer, and the news broke about a body found by the lake, they knew. And one name kept coming up again and again. Brandon Theesfeld. Judge Kelly Luther delivered the sentence. Life in prison. In Mississippi, there's no parole for first-degree murder, but by taking the plea deal, Brandon avoided the death penalty. He'll be eligible to apply for release only at 65, if he lives that long. So yes, technically, he'll spend his life behind bars, with only a theoretical chance of walking free as an old man. Public reaction was mixed. For the Costile family, it was justice, but not closure. Cindy said, "Our lives are shattered forever. Her absence haunts us every single day." For Brandon's family, it was a painful mix of grief and relief. Through his attorney, his mother shared, "After 2 years learning more about their relationship, my heart is broken. I wish my son had felt he could talk to us about what he was going through. I hope other parents speak openly with their kids, so nothing ever feels too shameful or too hard to talk about." It wasn't an excuse. It was a reminder that silence and judgment can destroy lives. When reporters asked the attorney about motive, he just shrugged. There's no excuse, and there's no good explanation. He suggested maybe alcohol or drugs played a role, that Brandon just snapped. But prosecutors didn't buy it. This was cold, calculated, not a crime of passion, a premeditated execution, said Deputy District Attorney Mickey Millett. Journalist Jake Thompson later reflected, "This case shook Oxford to its core. It hit the university, the town, everyone. Ally was part of this place for 4 years, and losing her like that was devastating." Her Instagram page, Sunsets by Al, became a memorial. Every pink horizon now feels like a reminder of her light. As for Brandon, prison life has only just begun. His father's money means nothing now. All that's left are concrete walls, a narrow cot, and decades to replay the moment he pulled that trigger. And as Ally's mother said, the worst moments are the silent ones, because it's in the silence that we feel her absence the most.